Ezra Cohen now performs the duties of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict. He's the fifth leader to take on these duties in the past 3 years. Cohen's the latest on a long list of acting and performing duties of officials in the department. Bob Works, former Deputy Secretary of Defense. Mr. Secretary, welcome. It's great to have you back on the program. How do you go about finding and recruiting good people to take these roles, the kind of people that are qualified to take these positions in an administration of any party?
Well, I can only speak to my experience when I was in the Obama administration, and it all starts with the transition team. One of the key roles of the transition team is to identify the bench of people who are interested in serving the country in the Department of Defense or other cabinet posts, and keeping a tab on people who want to come in and constantly refreshing it. So the experience that I had was we had a very active and very effective White House personnel office, and they would identify candidates. We would have a White House liaison officer over at the Pentagon who would exchange information with the White House personnel office, tell them the type of positions we were looking for. And in most cases, the Secretary of Defense would have an opportunity to interview the person and to either say, look, I'd rather have someone else, or this person is fine. So it all starts with that transition team and goes throughout the administration.
And the going throughout the administration, I think, is as important, isn't it, as the initial transition team? You want to keep that pipeline full for the entire 4 or 8 years that an administration is in office.
That's exactly right, Francis. I mean, these jobs are very, very hard on people, take long hours. And so you always constantly have to have a backbench of people who are willing to serve and are qualified to serve. Another key aspect is some of them need to be confirmed by the Senate. So you have to do all of the vetting, et cetera.
Given that these jobs are such a grind, Bob, how do you keep tabs on the people that are in place to determine this is somebody who can continue, we need to keep this person fresh, and this is somebody who's doing a good job, but maybe is at the end of the line and it's time to switch out?
The leaders who are in the different positions, generally at the Undersecretary of Defense level, and certainly the Deputy Secretary and the Secretary, keep track of the people on the staff, keep track of their performance, take input from the White House, take input from people both over the serving person as well as their subordinates. And whenever it becomes evident that a person needs to be switched out, then you start to work with White House personnel to see how the best way to do it. In some cases, it's just a round peg in a square hole. So you might want to shift the person from one cabinet department to another into a job that better suits their skills and expertise. And then there are people who just say, hey, it's time to go. And generally, the rule is you need to give the White House personnel office at least 2 or 3 or 4 months of advance notice so that they can go through the vetting process for their replacements, et cetera.
Yeah, what I was getting at there more is the idea that since these jobs are so difficult, I imagine the burnout level is fairly high at some point in time. Not so much that somebody wasn't a good fit for the job, but just these jobs have to be exhausting, Bob.
They are, and especially with people with kids, you know, just like any other parent who's in a very, very high-profile job, it's hard making a balance. The work-life balance in the Pentagon is very, very difficult to maintain. So you have people who generally they try to stay for at least 2 years in an administration, and some try to stay for the entire administration. But you're right, having a deep bench of people who are qualified is absolutely critical because you have people leaving for all sorts of reasons.
How wide can you cast the net, Bob? Were there places that you looked for talent that maybe didn't seem obvious on the surface? I think everybody imagines that you look to the Hill, you look to think tanks, there's kind of this government in waiting when a new party comes to office or when a party that's in power continues to a second term, that these candidates exist. But I wonder if there are places where you looked that maybe aren't the usual suspects as far as places to find candidates.
Well, the deputy secretary isn't real, central to the recruiting operation. And you get ideas from all sorts of people who were in the campaign, people who are in the party, people, as you said, who are on the Hill. There are a lot of quality candidates who are in the Senate and the House Armed Services Committee, for example. You get recommendations from industry. You get recommendations from think tanks, as you said. There's a wide variety of people who are interested in serving in the government, and generally there are all sorts of different ways to identify them.
About 30 seconds left, Bob. What was the greatest tool that you had, do you think, to keep people that you wanted to make sure stayed working for you?
The mission, without question. The people who serve in the Department of Defense are committed to the mission, committed to the young men and women who volunteer to serve our country, absolutely critical about furthering our national interests. So you can't get much more consequential than the jobs in the Department of Defense. And that generally is enough to keep people around for as long as they can.
Bob Work, thanks very much as always. Great to have you back.
It's great to be here, Francis. Have a good time and be safe.